It's Fence Walker here with David Jacobs, and I gotta see if that view works.
Okay.
David,
Hi.
what is most important?
What is most important? What is most important is meaning. Living life that it's in alignment with what I give it meaning, and that's a complicated question. Lots of different people have lots of different ways of looking at that.
I'm trying to make sure it picks up your sound.
Some people get meaning and,
It does say record,
what's
right?
important
Yes.
from their pastor or their pope or whatever person they're following. But I think I've reached a point in my life where I find that it's up to me to figure out what meaning is and my meaning of my life and what's important. So I equate the two.
You think what?
What's important is that the question you asked, and I immediately translate to what I consider mostly, which is what is the meaning of my life and what
Your life specifically?
my life, but my life is all I have control over, right?
Yeah.
And so what gives my life meaning does have other people involved. I mean, that's very important for the meaning of my life. But it's not the ultimate. It's not the end question. It's not what I want to maintain control over when I make decisions about things.
So what's most important is controlling your own life?
Being responsible in my own life. Controlling is a word that I wouldn't use too much. I don't have a lot of control over my life.
Yeah. I don't think any of us
We don't,
do.
right? Exactly. And gratitude about what we have. And taking meaning from what we have, enjoying what we have, as opposed to what's important is that I accomplish all these particular goals and that my life look a certain way, without questioning that the perceptions that I have about how my life should look may not actually come directly from me. They may be expectations other people had for me, or that they model. Some people model different goals in life, right? And so sometimes we want to follow these people because they're so certain about what's important.
So, it sounds like it's also important that you determine what's important about your life and not someone else.
Yeah, it's a big question. What is important is ultimately a question I need to... Yeah, it's important for me to be... A priority important is for me to decide what's important. Yeah.
That's my understanding of what the reason for existence is to determine what your reason for existence is.
There you go.
So you're along those lines.
Yeah, and it takes a while to get there. It's not an easy process.
No.
So
Okay.
I really appreciate being around people that are willing to explore those questions and be confused by them, because when you originally start taking responsibility for your own life, it's like, oh man, that's big. It's about as big as it gets.
Yeah, if it made sense without any explanation, then everyone would already understand it.
Yeah, life isn't easy.
No. Okay. Question 2 relates to big organizations of control like government and religion. What are your opinion on that?
My opinion about big organizations like government, like religion, like business too?
Sure.
Okay. Big organizations, that's interesting. It is necessary for human beings to be kind of interconnected and concerned with community, concerned with individual health, concerned with other people's health, concerned with other nations, people who are not as able to take care of themselves. So we need a way of joining forces and supporting those who need help, and then sometimes we need help ourselves, and We need our society to kind of provide certain infrastructure, certain emergency care. Government has a purpose. So I would say, you asked me to talk about big institutions, and it's taken me a little while to start trusting that government is a good thing, because I think there's a lot of messages in our world that want to kind of say that no, government is a bad thing, and it restricts our freedoms. And I do really cherish freedom and personal responsibility, but I don't think that no one's an island, and I think that we learn how to be our best life by associating with other people, by getting our ideas from other people, by wrestling with our ideas with other people,
or exchanging ideas.
However,
developing ideas.
It could come from media or books. In fact, a lot of the best ideas you don't just get from one-on-one conversations. But if I get a lot of my ideas from watching a lot of materials, maybe getting an education, then when I interact with somebody like you or do an interview, then people can tell that I've put some thought into this, and maybe they'll listen to me. My purpose in life is not to just influence people. My hope is that everybody will be able to live in a way where we all get the best out of us.
Sort of a utopia.
I don't think it's not going to be perfect. I wouldn't say it's utopian. I would say that if we rely on our own power and our own values to sort of guide us in how we're going to interact with one another, as opposed to big government or big institutions telling us exactly what we need, then it's going to actually turn out better. Big institutions are theoretically have maybe some solutions, but ultimately they do. I don't think that big institutions do things efficiently, and they actually, I think, what's the word I'm going to use here? They inhibit the individual's ability to figure out what's best for them and for everybody else too. Once we sort of invest all that power in somebody else, either government or business or religion, then we've stopped questioning. It makes life become sort of like easy now. I don't think life was meant to become easy. And I actually like learning more all the time about how I can do better. And I like my skills. I like my ability to be able to sort of observe other people.
Thank you.
And and their comments and their values about things, and discern whether I think those are, I'd say good, or they're well thought out. And then maybe if I hear some stuff from somebody else, I'll kind of think, hey, there's some things I haven't thought about before. That just feels like it fits me too. So it's always staying open, but can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So you need the active questioning. And in a democracy or in a free society, we're all free to talk about what our beliefs are. And we also don't want government to be dictating which religions are the ones that are official, right? We don't want to be eliminating people from, officially with government power trying to control that people either have a religion or don't have a religion. Because ultimately, you can't get in people's minds. They have to struggle with their own sense of their worldview and everything like that.
Okay, on the topic of religion, what is your personal history with religion, and at what point did you decide it was or was not for you?
I think there's not a clear delineation for me, but as a child, I was exposed to, my mother was pretty well-read. My dad was smart in terms of, he was an engineer, and so he had mechanical knowledge. And I mostly valued ideas and thoughts that made sense. So there were lots of incidents in my childhood where friends would try to have conversation with me. Even little kids can wrestle with these ideas. But with being a child, though, sometimes the influence, especially if somebody whips out a nice thick book and they say, "What's right here?" and you go, "Wow, that's pretty powerful. It's a well put together book. It's got all this gold lining around it, and it becomes difficult for a child to sit back and when another child is kind of like talking about their religious beliefs or something, to say, I don't really believe that." There's a lot of peer pressure there. There's a lot of the fact that a child doesn't have self-confidence or haven't really grown up enough yet to make those kind of decisions. But I think I did from an elemental level, so that eventually, if a friend would take me to church, and this happened, a friend would say, "Oh yeah, I've got a new friend. I'm gonna take him to my church," and I'd sit there in the church, and it's like some of it sounded good, but didn't really. Some parts of it didn't sound very right. It's an intuitive thing. Mm-hmm. But later on, as becoming an adult, I realize now, there's a whole bunch of people that they just want to all believe the same thing, and it doesn't really matter what it is. They just want to have a feeling of being with other people, of being on the right side, like-minded, or like-hearted. I think the thing between being in a happy community, people feel safe. Some churches feel like you might be able to explore a few ideas, or at least ask questions about what the religion's idea is. And so this, you were asking my history. Wasn't aware of any religions that were open-minded, and weren't really aware of any open-minded people that were religious. So I tended to just want to have reasonable answers. Sometimes religious people have those. I don't want to paint them all with the same brush. So I've sort of dabbled in with interaction with lots of people. But at some point in about my 40s, I really went into a crisis and wondered, what the hell is this all about? And I hadn't really, at that point, filled out a lot of the questions I might ask about life. Then I was, because then it felt like I'm upset and my life seems to be in turmoil, and why am I doing the things that I do? So the big question happened then. And one of the places, I look around and I found humanism, a local humanist organization. I started attending there. I was also started getting together with men in a men's circle, and some of those men were obviously, being in a men's circle, it's about sharing ideas in your life and even some philosophical ideas. Some of those men were Unitarian, Universalists, and they were very smart, and I could get that was my source of new ideas, open conversation, and eventually I sat in on a Unitarian Universalist service, and I found that there were things that were being said that I hadn't really just explored before, and I really liked what I was hearing, but there was a lot of things I was hearing that I didn't like. And I thought, now wait a minute here.
I've been through this before.
There's some really good stuff, but there's all this bad stuff. There's stuff that's making me not feel good, not trusting. It was I think was primarily because the service was the minister talking, and there wasn't really a way to question anything. So that automatically it was almost like being in a class. But for me, these questions that are being talked about in a service were really important ones, and if there were pieces of it that I didn't really agree with, I wanted to explore it, right? But I didn't have a chance because the minister's moving along.
Right.
And but I thought, well, I would go home and I would chew on what I heard, and I'd realize, wow, there's some concepts there that are pretty cool. So some things I hadn't thought about. And so I started myself, I was growing, but I couldn't see myself as 100% joining the church kind of thing. And Unitarian Universalists often have trouble with the word church even. So the fact that they were even themselves uncomfortable with either the word church or even pretending that anybody had all the answers, that told me I was in an open-minded place. And so it just sort of, my history kind of goes from there. I actually started working at the Unitarian Universalist Society, and then I left it. I started exploring Unity and other churches. I found that I became more open to listening to lots of different ministers, lots of different people from different religions, because I realized that I had taken on a kind of a barrier, that if I found out somebody was religious, my listening would just turn off, and I realized, oh, wait a minute, I had been missing a lot of stuff. But reasonably so, because at that time, probably in my 30s, I didn't have any skill to listen to the wisdom of a Catholic, let's say. Now, I can listen to them, and I can agree with some of what they say, but I can also just say, we are in disagreement around a lot of stuff. But the benefit of listening to somebody else talk about their ideas and the reasons for it and such was, again, enriching. It just filled in lots of other blanks for me that I didn't have, or that I had. So recently, I am actually decided, after going to Unitarian Universalists for a long time, and even working there, then decided to return to it, and then realized it was because of the internet, I was able to research a little bit more about Unitarian Universalism, and I'm like, wow, there's even more here than I thought. I thought I was getting a lot out of it before. It's now time for me to come back and really start soaking it up. So I joined as a member, and for a while, I felt like, oh, this must be my home, my place, which is kind of typically what religious people, I hear them say. But that kind of wore off, because even there at the Unitarians, I would tend to ask questions. And there's a limit to the number of questions that you can ask, because it starts to tire people out. Maybe they really don't want to know as much as you know, or something. And so within the last couple of years, I've found Sunday Assembly. So Sunday Assembly is a once a month thing that really brings a lot of people who don't feel a little comfortable with any religion, or maybe they're exiled out of a religion or whatever. But whenever I get together and have a potluck with the folks, I feel like we're open-minded. We can listen. Nobody has all the answers, but some people have a lot more answers than maybe they even realize, or it's just really valuable to be around people that are open-minded and engage in the questions sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I got the point where you decided you were in or out of any particular belief system.
Yeah, so I'm in and out.
You go back and forth.
But really, I was in and out of a community called Unitarian Universalism and other unity churches and other organizations that they seem to ebb and flow in terms of, it seems like it has lots of really good lessons, and then I'll get really into it and sort of wrestle through that. But then once I've gotten through and really have gotten something out of it, maybe I've reached a plateau. Then I go off and search somewhere else. So I'm in and out. So the question you asked, which is when did I decide religion wasn't for me?
Or was for you?
Yeah, but I'd say that it's a question that keeps coming up because the answer keeps changing.
Very good.
I think that the question came up early in my life, and then I probably lived many years with the answer, religion has nothing for me. That was being closed-minded. Yeah, that was being defensive.
So you are similar to my moniker of being a fence walker in some cases.
I like walking fences. Yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid.
I am honored by that. Thank you. Okay, my playful question. If you were a superhero, what would your power be and your superhero name be? Now, before I let you answer that, I've gotten two diverging portions of this question. One is you're a comic book superhero and you can fly and shoot laser beams or something like that. The other one is a part of your life that you feel heroic about. My answer was that my superpower is surviving a brain tumor 26 years ago. That's not really a superpower, but I am a hero for it. So answer that in both ways, in one way, however you would like to answer that, the superhero thing.
Yeah, I heard you ask this question before, and actually, yeah, I rebel against the comics book forms of those. And I actually have found my superheroes in the real world. Mm-hmm. And it occurs to me like this, kind of like I watch somebody on the internet and I go, wow, that was courageous. I wish I could do that. That's as far as my superhero thing will go. But it's pretty wow. It's pretty big. I mean, there have been, people that have survived, and let's not say survived. I mean, yes, there's lots of people that have survived oppression. Martin Luther King, lots of activists who turned it over. They were oppressed at one point, but they grew through it. So my superhero is somebody that learns to grow and adapt to the real world and appreciate the real world, as opposed to being oppressed by the social world or the circumstances they're in, and maybe looking for superheroes in fantasy characters. Because I think that we need to believe in something. We might want to think about people who have empowerment, and that's what superheroes are. They have like supernatural powers. But I really appreciate.
So then I guess I'm asking, where do you feel empowered, or how do you feel empowered?
I'm slowly feeling empowered as I take on my own engagement in life and in society. I'm an activist, and I've done some protesting, and I've done it by myself. In other words, I have tried to join other groups, circulating petitions and cheering in rallies, maybe at the state capitol and stuff. I feel like I disappear there. I feel like there's a lot of conflicting influences about why am I doing what I'm doing. If everybody's decided to stand out in front of the state capitol and do something, I can go along with that, but it doesn't really take much courage to do it with other people. But when I decide to take a stand in some situation and I'm all by myself, I have to really wrestle with it, because there's a lot of, like, the big question goes off in my mind is like, who the heck are you to be protesting this? It's a big institution, right? And all these other people are very certain about the answers, and I can't even find allies. Most of the time when I try to build alliances with people to sort of protest against something or like that, most people are pretty timid. And I've found that if I can find my own motivation, my own courage, and exercise it by actually going out there and doing it, now I know what it's like to completely depend on myself and really question whether or not I'm right about what I'm protesting about. I have to be really clear about that. I can't rely on the fact that this leader has told us, okay, now we're going to go take banners and we're going to march this direction, and we're doing it against let's say, like, we're all going to protest against the oligarchy or the 1%, right? Oh, everybody seems to hate the 1%. Do you really understand this that well? Or are you willing to sort of protest the 1% because there's a whole bunch of people in the park and they're all doing it? And it's kind of fun to protest. Well, there is a sense of solidarity there. There's a sense of joining and being a rebel with other people. I like that. I've done it. But it doesn't give me a clear picture of what am I doing and why am I doing it, and doing it by myself, being my own leader, sort of forces that question. So I feel much more confident when I'm doing it. I feel like I'm following me as to following another. Following another is tricky.
I like that a lot.
Yeah? Good.
Being your own leader.
Yeah.
Making your own decisions.
Yeah.
Having your own reasons for believing in things.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, that was the question that was supposed to be the funny one.
The non-serious one.
Oh, I noticed it got serious because I'm a serious guy.
That's okay. Serious Man. There you go. There's your superhero name.
I think there's a bit of humor. There has to be whenever you ask some of these really big questions, because they're very troubling. Purpose of life, even. I mean, why do we have a religion? Well, probably because people were wondering, what the hell is the purpose of my life? And then, of course, they've got this priest or this community of religious people, and they don't have to worry about the question, because what the hell, I'm going to church and they all have the answers.
They're willing to let someone else tell them.
Yeah, it's in a book. And then if I start questioning it a little bit more, if I even start to bring up the questioner in me, the people in that religious community are going to say, no, that's too far. You don't ask your questions beyond the Bible.
Okay.
Or whatever.
That's a really good segue to my last question.
Oh.
In that, do you have any questions for me?
I'm exhausted from the interview and I've talked too much. I think I probably do have questions for you, but I think they will come up as we get to know each other.
Run one off the top of your head. Just so I can add it to the interview here.
Yeah.
Because I am really hungry and I want to eat.
Yeah, we got our food sitting here. Do I have a question for you? I am curious about... I'm also curious about your background. About your religious background or religious training, your experiences?
Okay, I have answered that before. Sometimes I call it the question game, where I'll ask someone a question, but I'll answer it as well. And I don't know if that gets tedious, so I haven't brought that up to everyone. But you just want to know my background?
Yeah.
Could you be more specific? Because I could go on forever.
Well, so more specific. So are some of my experiences that I explained about my childhood, about midlife, this kind of evolution of my refining my belief systems, do you relate to that? I'm wondering what your evolution looks like. Each one of us is a different species who've evolved, and I'm really curious how you evolved.
So similar to my question about your background in religion and at what point did you decide you were or were not part of it. Okay, you want the camera on me or still on you, or what would you like?
Yeah, you don't need to be. Let's see.
See, I'll get comfortable here. Of course, I want this food really bad. Without knowing it, I grew up in a non-religious family, although my mother was a surviving Catholic. That's the way she described it. She did drag me and my brother to church every once in a while. It was usually with her sister and her sister's kids, but neither of the husbands ever joined us. I can't say I fully paid attention to too many of the sermons, but that that's because the few words that I did hear, I didn't really care for. You know, it's like, why do you follow that belief based off of that argument? You know, it didn't make any sense to me. There was a lot of kneeling and posturing, and I didn't understand any of the purpose to it all. And then in junior high school, I shared this one with David on his interview, David Diskin, that I was trying to pronounce the word agnosticism. And I didn't know what it meant, and one of the older students told me what it was, and I go, oh, is that what I am? Because I didn't know. What he said, it's you don't necessarily believe in God, and you don't really care that other people do. That was the explanation that was given to me. I said, oh, well, there's a word for me now. And he looked at me like, I don't know what he was thinking, but the conversation ended there. We did not discuss anything more about it. But he did seem a little put off that I was not a believer. And so at that point, I kind of realized, well, yeah, I've never liked church, never liked going. My philosophy, even before that, was I didn't want to join any religion or group that disliked any other religion or group that wouldn't include another person from that group. So in that sense, the Sunday Assembly Sacramento being radically inclusive, I asked David Diskin that question, and Janet as well. I do admire that. I'm not quite as all-inclusive as they are. You know, I prefer someone be able to explain why they believe something. And if they can't believe that, then why should I believe what they're saying? One argument was that people on disability are gaming the system. And I point out that I'm on disability. Do you believe I'm gaming the system? Oh, no, you're legit. You know, brain tumor, all that.
Yeah.
I said, okay, do you know anyone else who is on disability that is gaming the system? No. Do you know anyone else that is on disability that is not gaming the system? No. So you have one piece of evidence of a person on disability that's not gaming the system, and no evidence otherwise, yet you believe otherwise. And that does not make sense to me. I need a better reason than that.
Yeah.
So when I came across the Reason Center and the Sunday Assembly, in Diskin's interview, I imagined the Reason Center to be like a White Castle with a moat around it that didn't allow anything unreasonable to cross it. You know, and that's my playful interpretation of it. Does that explain my history to you at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you like to ask me anything else?
Are you ready to eat?
I am very ready to eat, but I also want to make sure I don't cut off anything out of this interview.
I imagine another interview might come up.
Yeah, we can do this again anytime you want.
Okay.
So,
I think it's time to eat.
Okay, it is time to eat, so we're done.
That's a nice interview.